Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you all are. My name is Kevin Boyle. I'm the Director for Organizational Workforce Development for the Equitable Food Initiative, coming to you today from Corvallis, Oregon. Today's an introductory session for our work in building and facilitating and leading high-performing work organizations. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the skills and the approaches to doing that today. And we will go deeper into these skills and abilities in our Facilitation 101, Leading High-Performing Teams in Dynamic Workplaces, November 5th through the 7th. And I believe if you're interested, you can register for that up until October 15th. So today we kind of start with this overall model that leadership in organizations begin with ourselves. And sorry. It starts with the personal relationships, who we are, trying to really stay in alignment with our core beliefs and values, and then our relationships with others. And it's alignment and trying to continue to keep our core beliefs and values in view as we begin to build relationships with those that we work with and work for. And then we move out into kind of the managerial side of staying in alignment with our core beliefs, but understanding that we have organizations and goals and objectives, people that we need to lead. And finally, at the organizational level, to really try to stay in alignment with who we are with other people and understand that it's the group of individuals and ourselves that really lead high-performing organizations. So where do we lead from? It's a dynamic challenge to lead because sometimes we've got to give direction, make decisions, and we lead from our role as a manager or supervisor. Other times we have knowledge, so we teach based on our experience, our expertise, and sharing that information with the people that we lead. And then also we lead the process. We have to often organize our structures, organize the process in which we're trying to work. So we're moving between those different levels of the authority that we have as a supervisor or a manager, the knowledge we have, and the processes in which we build so that we can get the work done. And it really starts with a task. In the center is really of this model is this helping people understand and be clear about the tasks that they're trying to get done. So that really becomes the focus of leadership, to really help people stay focused on the outcomes and the work that we do. It starts with ourselves. When you think about reading the room, it really is what we see, what we hear, but also the empathy and the internal dynamics that we have and how we present ourselves in any given situation as a leader. So, the whole idea is sometimes you think about, what am I seeing here? What do I think's going on? And how do I feel about what's happening? And we bring the experience in the moment, also experiences that we've had in the past, and it really informs us about the kinds of things that we're seeing that's going on. And it's important to think about those questions as you're walking into a situation of trying to lead a group of people to accomplish a task. And sometimes it maybe is even helpful to name it, because people may have different perspectives or they may have the same point of view. And it really begins, you as a leader begin to really pull people together. And the next level is, of course, the group level. You know, the group dynamics are important with who you're working with and the kind of task and the kind of work that you need to get done. And it's really important for leaders to ask ourselves, have I seen this kind of behavior before? Are people resisting? Are people enthusiastic? Is there a conflict of interest that seems to be um, presenting itself before us? So it's really important to bring your own experiences into these relationships because it really then pulls a group together and understanding that maybe they're not alone. And then finally, the process. It's about a self-awareness of ourselves in that process. How are we seen by other people? Do you get a sense of that? And then really helping people to develop the tools and the action and the processes to really begin to coalesce around getting the work done. And in our uh, facilitation training, we'll get a little bit more into the idea of conflicting interests that may be present when you're trying to get a task done. But the key here is active listening. It's one of the best skills as a leader or facilitator that you can use so that you can really pay attention and hear and sense what's going on in the room. So this model really is a holistic model of recognizing the power you have with your experiences and your knowledge and your role, but also recognizing and understanding the group dynamics that you can really begin to lead them and help them develop a process that makes them successful. And if there's any questions that you might have as I go, this is a very short webinar. Please put them in the chat, and Alexandra, who's helping me today, she'll let me know that they're there in the chat, and I'll try to answer them the best that I can in the time that we have. So, people are the key to high performance. We all have tools, we all have processes, we all have organizational structures, but it's really the individuals that are in the organization. And we all have our personal paradigms about attitude. And I want to talk a little bit about the two kind of choices about checking your assumptions um, around what is your attitude going in and what is a paradigm. It's really how am I within this environment? The paradigm allows us to see people and things differently, and the choices we make are impacted by that paradigm that we have in the moment. And there's two. The being other focused and really understanding other people and seeing them for who they are. Um, it really allows us to return to our source of being. Um, we seek solitude and enjoy the broader world. We're looking at a bigger environment and not just the environment in which we're at. We really work to help build skills and understanding. We serve others um, with whatever they need if we can, maintain long-term relationships, forgive ourselves and others because, hey, nobody's perfect. We're going to make mistakes. And it's when we can recognize them, you can really build on your team. You can build on your own learning and your own opportunity. And finally, when we're focused, we're problem solvers. The other is when we're self-focused. We see that everything is about me. We see things in terms of win-lose. There's only so much of me, so much of my time, and I really need to keep it for myself. Um, we can only be right if someone else is wrong, and I have a hard time being generally happy for successes of other people. So the interesting thing about this, and we'll go actually much deeper into this in our facilitation course 101, is these are choices that we make about ourselves with other people. And organizations actually have them also. A large organization can have another focus and really see the abundance and the skill and the ability of other people to really make organizations work. Um, we also then can have that scarcity approach as an organization. It's win-lose, there's turf, others are part of the problem. We're looking at the outside for solutions and not looking inside. It's a zero-sum game. It can be win-lose. And I can give you an example of myself. When I moved into that scarcity approach, um, my career, professional careers, have been working professionally about 53 years, and I had a great manager. I've had many, some not so great, but this particular man was a great mentor and manager. Actually, one of the best I've ever had. I was a lineman for the telephone industry at the time, and I was elected by my peers to be a union representative. Um, and at the time that I was elected, I really bought into that, management was wrong. And consequently, then, because he represented that, he was wrong. And we continued to battle, which was so not normal for our relationships. But people would bring problems to me, and I'd take problems to him, and there was always a right or wrong. There was no um, consolidation of different interests and different ideas, and we continued to battle for some time. And one day he called me into his office and he said, "Look, Kevin, um, I know you have this job to do because you represent people here, but it would be great if you would start bringing the problems with some solutions, some idea about how we can really find a good path forward." And in that moment, for him reaching out to me and recognizing what I needed to do in my work opened my eyes to, well, he's got a job to do too. And from that day forward, we were able to solve so many problems. We never got into a conflict, even though we might have had different organizational interests because of a labor contract, because of working conditions, whatever it might be. We were always able to find some solution to the problems that were brought forward to us. So, we can get into these long-term battles, but when you start then to see the other for who they are versus who you want them to be or need them to be because you need to be right, it can change the entire environment in terms of how we lead and how we work. And there was a piece I read that at the rate of organizational change, organizations that learn faster and better among each other become the only sustainable source of competitive advantage. And that really hit me because we, as leaders, reading the room and seeing opportunity, we can really facilitate and move people to find very creative solutions. So it's just the idea that we make choices as individuals, as individual leaders, about how we enter into a situation and see the room. So that's just an example of, and the challenging part for me oftentimes is as a father, as a family, person, oftentimes probably the most embarrassing times that I've gone into that scarcity mode is with my family and with my kids. I'm the dad, that's why. Well, they've got a different view. And so really trying to understand when I'm really looking out after the other as well, versus it's all about me. So we'll go much deeper into this as we get into the facilitation course in October. So what are some of the roles? Well, we're leaders. We're managers, and we have to make decisions. A leader really sets a tone and direction, kind of staying in that abundance mode whenever possible to really help people see the bigger picture continuously, and then finding their place and being able to be successful within that bigger picture. We have a management role. We have to set the context and pace of the organization. So we've got to move back and forth from the big picture to what's going on in the moment. And then we are um, expected to make decisions from time to time as we manage, the bigger picture along with whatever tactical plans or work that we have to do. So it's a challenge in leading, managing government within a dynamic organization because you're not doing this on your own. You're doing this with many people. So We're going to talk a little bit now about what's a leader, setting the tone and direction, concerned with doing the right thing, making sure that you're staying focused not only the right thing to get the work done, but the right thing for the people that you're attempting to lead. As a leader, you're always taking the longer term view, kind of looking out, knowing where we are in the moment, but also recognize that we've got other things to do uh, in the future, but also concentrate on letting people know the what they need to do and why. So often, we as a manager, and I'll get into that in a moment, we move back and forth between telling people what to do, helping them do that. But it's so important to help people understand why, because that creates a broader look and a broader perspective of people that we're leading. Um, think about innovation, development in the future. The people that work with us have so many ideas. And I find a lot in our work in agriculture and in the field is the biggest challenge is no one ever asks, how can we do this differently? Right? So there is a lot of creativity, a lot of experience in the people that you're working with and that are working and reporting to you. It doesn't take much to say, what do you think? Do you have another idea? Um, Set a vision for the future as a team. What do we want to do? Um, and others will respond and follow if they understand why we're doing what we're doing. Um, Recognizing that people have the same hopes, dreams, fears as we do. And when there might be resistance, this is where you go back into your own self and go, if I was faced with this, what would I do? And recognize that you can form an issue as a leader just by paying attention to how you might respond. And then you inspire people the best that we can. Now, the challenge is that we also have to manage within a context of economics, within strategy, within the law, within time frames. So, as a manager, we set that context and pace, and at the same time, we've got to be concerned with doing things right. Doing the right thing is one piece, but how we then take that action and make it work is a whole nother dynamic. Sometimes it's a shorter view. We've got a task to do. We might be looking at a vision, but there's tasks that we've got to get done to get there. And so that's when we really become more concerned and focused on how do we get it done. Now, as a manager, getting more information from the people that you lead can really help getting things done and how we get it done. But we also, as a leader, legally and organizationally, we have to think in terms of administration, maintenance, and present. What's going on now? We have a fiduciary responsibility as well as a human resources responsibility to administer and maintain great working relationships. So many of you, I'm sure, have been involved in strategic planning. We set the plan and then we put time frames on a quarterly basis, weekly basis, maybe a daily basis. But we've got to also maintain the pace to get that work done and hope that others complete their task and manage it if they can't. We monitor the boundaries and define the limits as a manager of what people can do, what they're able to do, what's their job description, and how do they fit into the larger picture. So we expect others to fulfill their mission and purpose. And as a manager, we want to keep things stable. And we all know in this world these days with labor shortages and new technologies and new markets and new expectations, that workplaces can get unstable just because of the amount and the pace of change that takes place. So trying to keep your eye on that longer vision as a leader and then maintaining getting the work done today is a challenge and really creates some tension among us. And then um, we also have to manage and govern the environment. So there's certain principles and rules and for policy and purpose in terms of decision making that we need to adhere to, depending on your organization and what's the expectation of making decisions around direction, purpose, and policy. We have got to describe that criteria for success in organizations. Here, yes, there might be issues. Yes, there might be barriers, but look, this is the outcome, and we've really got to focus on making sure that we are all responsible for the outcome of the organization. We also identify who's accountable, certain accountabilities. The flip side to that is, I always take that word accountability and look at it from the perspective of the ability to account for. Do the people in the organization that I lead have the ability? Do I need to figure out ways in which train them or educate them so that they can be accountable? Because so it's a two-way street. Yes, people are accountable for the work and the expectations that the organization might have, but do they have the ability to be able to do it? And that becomes my responsibility as a leader to figure out how I can help them develop so that they can be accountable in the way the organization expects. We also have to monitor success and challenges to that success. So we're keeping our eye on the big picture. We're trying to get things done, setting the pace and the context, and yet at the same time, we have the responsibility as leaders to monitor that success and help people be successful. And we got to avoid what's going to get in the way. And, hopefully in the way that we see people in that paradigm of abundance, others will participate and come forward in helping make decisions. It isn't just me, I said so because I'm the manager. It is what's the best decision for reaching that vision, that longer term look, getting it done within the context of the work that we're doing, and making sure that everybody has a say. That sometimes if they're listened to, great, but that might not be the right decision. So we as leaders in an organization, we may have to make that final decision, but we can facilitate that participation as a leader. Um, expect others to act and then inspire people to participate. Don't shut them down. They may or may not come up with a good idea, but if people are participating, they're going to continually feel like they're a part of that vision, they're committed to get the work done, and that they've at least had a say in decision making. So these are challenges. These are very difficult things to have to get through as a leader. And we'll talk quite a bit more about that in our Facilitation 101 on leading dynamic workplaces in November to really provide some models and different ways in which you can manage this tension between managing, leading, and governing of an organization. The one thing I want to say is until I became a manager or a director, these were a lot of great words until I was in the middle of it and had to start trying to manage this tension. And it's a real skill, it's a real ability. So never sell yourself short if you're leading and managing an organization or facilitating a training or facilitating a conflict, that you have got all the tools that you need to really be successful in this work. It's just a matter of learning different approaches, different interventions that may or may not help you get to that point. So I'm going to just stop right there just for a second and see if there's any questions that people um, have that I might be able to answer based on what we've done so far. I'll just wait a second and I'll try to answer them if you can put them in the chat. And then I'm going to have you do some self-reflection, in just a moment. Okay, if no questions. So I'd just like you to think a moment in terms of what we've gone through this morning. What tension do you feel in defining and moving between the roles of leadership, of manager, and of having to come up with the decisions that align with both the work you're managing and the vision of your organization? And just think a moment about the difficulties in moving back and forth through those roles or trying to integrate them into kind of one approach that you might take as a leader. Um, what tensions come up for you? Write them in the chat, and then we'll just have a bit of a discussion before we end today. I can tell you, while you're thinking about that and choosing to write, some of the tensions that I have kind of go all the way back to that paradigm of being other focused and really trying to continually work to make the folks that work with me successful and trying to understand the challenges and hopes, dreams that they have about their work and maybe even broader than that and their families. Um, that's a challenge because sometimes we get into stressful situations where we got to get things done now. And instead of really taking the time to really understand the impact it's going to have on others, I just kind of take on that it's all about me mode. I got to get a decision made and I got to get it done now. That's a reality of the work that we do. But it often creates a tension when you get into this win-loss situation and at the same time have to manage to get the work done. How much energy is being taken by the maybe the battle or the tension that's going on within the people you're leading that you could be spent developing them, helping them, and making a better decision. Every day there's things that come up in our lives and managing in an organization that just, maybe our boss says we need this done today. You know, today I've got to try to figure out some budgets today. And I'm going, oh, I can't do anything else other than do that. But then there's people in the organization that have a need, and I've got to try to pay attention and balance that role. So that's what goes on for me, when I try to lead in an organization. We do, yeah, holding people accountable, having them learn, and then holding them themselves accountable is attention. It absolutely is, especially if they might be in that scarcity side of it's about me, that they need different things and they're going to get it. And if they don't have that openness to you as a leader, then that tension just creates itself. And I think we've got to recognize, yes, people may need some things from us, um, but also the organization has an expectation that we do this work. Sometimes we just got to say no. But why? Why can't we provide more time, more resources to you? Um, and that will help then a conversation or a dialogue take place that we might be able to find some recognition of common space. Um, being grounded in who we are is so important. And it really goes back to the experiences that we've had and thinking about the people who really supported you and what you believe, and even those you might have had conflict with. I mean, I was let go from a job one time, and I've only been fired once in my life. I don't know if it was fired, but laid off. And I've never felt better about it because of the way the person did it. Gave me the why, gave me the reality, gave me some really critical feedback about the work that I was doing and that maybe I didn't have the ability to do versus how I was feeling in the moment, betrayed, sad, whatever. And it's never thought I would say this, but being let go sometime with you being the center of that by the person who's got to give that tough message, because I've had to do that as well. But I've learned from those experiences that there are ways in which you can maintain the humanity of relationships, even in making hard decisions. So those are always going to be tensions that we have when we're trying to lead an organization. Thank you for that. I appreciate your comments. So I don't know there's anything we can give you at any time to take away those tensions, but I think as long as you're staying grounded and understanding who you are as a human being and bringing your humanity to work, oftentimes is enough to work through some very difficult situations. So as we move forward and start to build our Facilitation 101 leading in high performing work organizations, some of the skills that we're going to work on, we've given you some information today, but we're going to talk about, conflict and resolution and how you begin to find common interests so that you can move forward. Different communication strategies that one can use, um, especially in change management. And communication is so important when we go back to that original model around group dynamics to really not only communicate your message, but hear and understanding through active listening about what's going on for them. That is probably the key to leadership, is actively listening to what's going on with others. Change management, we go through a dynamic of change where people go, oh, I'm really resistant to this change. I'm feeling bad. I need this. I need that. But really then thinking about how do we get through people through the transition of that. And that again is really about communicating and being there for them, because all of us go through, and I think there's a grief cycle that some people have talked about, of change, of bargaining, of being angry, of being sad, and at some point beginning to find their place and say, okay, I can accept this and move forward. As a leader, we can help with that just by being open and honest and straightforward and recognizing that everybody's going to have different needs during change. And then finally, we're going to talk about the adult popular education principles. And basically, what those are is everybody in the room has knowledge, everybody in the room has experience. And by beginning to realize you're not the teacher only, you're also the learner, and talking about how to manage that in leading organizations. So where are we today? Read the room, lead the room. Read the room, based on your own experience, how you're sensing it, and really by looking at what other people's needs are in context of the vision of the organization and the work you need to do. People will follow because they trust you. October 8th, um, we're going to have another one of these webinars to touch on that next level of skill. Want to be a leader, try this first, of how to be a better leader. And then November 5th through the 7th, you can sign up by October 15th, leading and performing high performing teams. And then finally, those of you that might be internal trainers or educators in your organization, we're going to do a internal training leader, and that's in the context of the Affordable Initiative. Part of our mission is to develop teams facilitate that, and we have um, in the next month or two, and really encourage you to sign up deep into all concepts we've been talking about these webinars forward. So thank you so much. I'm sorry this was so quick, but I appreciate your attentiveness.